Hi, everybody. Today we are going to study a period of dictatorship and democracy between the two wars. This period is called the interwar period. This period happened between World War I and World War II. We are going to start with fascism in Italy. But before dealing with Italy itself, it is important to take into account what fascism is. Fascism is a form of political practice that arouses popular enthusiasm by means of sophisticated propaganda and promoting anti-liberal, anti-socialist, expansionist, and nationalist ideas. The main principle of fascism is the idea of a corporate state. Yes, a corporate state. So, what is a corporate state is the other question. A corporate state is the political, or was the political and economic system in fascist Italy. That is to say, after World War I. In this corporate state, people were not represented in the government as citizens, but in their capacity of producers, because this system rested upon an economic basis. A country under a corporate state system has the following characteristics. First of all, a large part of economy is controlled by government. The government repudiates laissez-faire. Remember laissez-faire, one of the principles of the classical economics of Adam Smith that we studied during the Industrial Revolution. Individual and class interests must be subordinated to the interest of the state. In Italy, specifically, they had a slogan, all for Italy, nothing for the individual. That is to say, all the class interests must be subordinated to the interest of the state. Obviously, that was the idea of a corporate state. Strikes were prohibited, so a fascist state prohibits strikes. In case of conflict between workers and owners, the state should intervene. So, this is the idea of a corporate state, and this is fascism. Now, I am going to explain how fascism evolved in Italy after World War I. The first point that you must bear in mind is that without the humiliating effects of World War I, fascism would have never developed in Italy. Why? If you remember the Treaty of Versailles in 1919, Italy was represented by the Prime Minister Vittorio Emanuele Orlando and the King, of course, Victor Emmanuel III. But when they signed the treaty, Italy, according to the opinion of the Italians and this Italian society, did not receive what she deserved because of her participation in the war. So these humiliating effects put all the blame on these two people, Vittorio Orlando and Victor Emmanuel III. They were considered responsible for having signed this treaty. The Italian government at that time, remember, was a parliamentary monarchy with the king and with the prime minister. So this is very important to remember. But obviously there were many causes for the fascist revolution in Italy. The first cause that I can mention is the frustrated nationalism, because the first of the nation of Western Europe to repudiate liberal and democratic ideals was Italy. This is strange because Italy fought on the winning side, but the problem was that Italy had been the victim of frustrated nationalism many times. Italy dreamt of extending the influence of or extending territories. Expansionism, remember, one of the policies of imperialism. But she had been frustrated many times because, for example, in 1881, her hope of acquiring Tunisia had been brought suddenly to an end by the French occupation of the country. Her effort to conquer Abyssinia in the 1890s, had been shattered in the Battle of Adowa because she had been defeated. So the effect of these reverses was to produce that sense of humiliation that I had already explained. and all the blame was put on the government. Another important cause was the influence of the Hegelian philosophy. That is to say, George Hegel, remember, one of the philosophers that we studied when we dealt with Marx, with Karl Marx. Well, this was a kind of morbid nationalism, and it gained popularity because of a group of intellectuals who had adopted and perverted this philosophy of Hegel. We can mention Giovanni Gentile and Giuseppe Prezzolini, who later were recognized as philosophers of fascism. But remember, fascism would have never been developed without the humiliating effects of World War I. They said that Italians should submerge their individual and class interest in a united endeavor to revive the greatness of the nation. Remember what I explained, all for Italy, nothing for the individual. So to submerge the individual interest in order to gain the status of that Roman Empire or the Italy at the time of the Renaissance. Another important aspect is the demoralizing and humiliating effects of the war. This is very important because the chief business of the Italian armies had been to keep the Austrians occupied on the southern front. That is to say, Italy was given a secondary role in the war, while the British, the French, and Americans hammered Germany. Her role was just to keep the Austrian occupied in the southern part. And to accomplish her purpose, Italy had to mobilize more than 5 million men, and nearly 700,000 people were killed. And as regards cost, she spent more than $15 billion. So these sacrifices, of course, were no greater than those of Great Britain and France, but the difference was that Italy was a poor country. Why was Italy poor? Because she didn't have colonies. Remember, I explained that all the attempts that frustrated nationalism Italy had carried out were shattered by other more powerful countries. For example, she was expecting to receive Fiume. Fiume was a little town with a way out to the Adriatic, but it was given to Yugoslavia by President Woodrow Wilson. And she was not permitted to share the distribution of Germany's colonies in Africa. So Italy did receive all what the Austrian territories she had been promised, but she considered that was not enough. So they alleged that such men, Premiere Orlando, had been so cravenly weak and inept to sign the Treaty of Versailles. So we come back again to that important aspect that I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation. Another important cause was the economy, because the war contributed to the revolution in a multitude of other ways. It resulted in inflation of the currency with consequent high prices, speculation, and profiteering. Normally, wages would have risen also, but the labor market was glutted on account of the return to the civilian life of million soldiers. So, million soldiers came back from the war, and they didn't have job opportunities. So, the labor market was collapsed. So that was another important problem that Italy had. She was facing an economic crisis which paved the way for fascism. High inflation, unemployment. Italians believed it was time for a political change. So this is when we come back to that philosophy that I explained of fascism that was promoted by Gentile and Prezzolini. Italians who had put all the blame on the government wanted a change. Although the basis of fascism had been laid before World War I started, remember that it would not have gained such tremendous popularity without the humiliating effects of World War I. These are the most important causes of the emerge of the fascist revolution in Italy.